Back to another episode. Today we have a guest on. Her name is Kristy Ventre, Ventry's Ventures. We're going to talk about all things traveling, entrepreneurship, the challenges that brings, some of the fun times that Kristy's had traveling the world and seeing some cool stuff, but also the misnomers where it is not as glamorous. It seems like that's a recurring theme with a lot of things. It is not as glamorous as it seems at all. Like
Oh
even
yeah.
podcasting, you're like, this is not what I thought it would be. It's kind of hard. But
Yeah.
that's beside the point. Why don't you tell people who you are, what you do, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. My name is Kristy Ventre. I am the owner of Ventry's Adventures. We actually started out as a student study abroad company because I was a teacher for a very long time. I still actually am a professor part time. So I guess you could like never really fully leave the profession. And so when COVID hit, we had to really pivot from just doing student trips because like the whole world was on lockdown. And so I started noticing that there was like a really big connection between the outdoors and mental health. And just like with everything that was going on in COVID, it seemed like a good idea to kind of pivot into another direction with student study abroad. So I also do outdoor adventure trips. So I take people like mountaineering all over the world, whitewater rafting all over the world. And now that the world is obviously reopened, we have that same kind of outdoor adventure component also in our student study abroad program. So yeah, that's what we do.
That's amazing. We also have similar matching neon signs we were talking about
We
beforehand in the
do. We
background of
do.
both of our videos. You can see yours now. There it is.
Yeah, I feel like that's when you know you've like fully made it in like your entrepreneurial realm. Is if you have the neon sign, you're like, here we are. Things
Yeah,
are good.
you get the sign and you're legit.
Yeah, for
You said
sure.
something. You said something interesting there before we, because I want to dive into like the places you've traveled and the mountaineering and stuff, because that sounds really
Yeah.
cool. But you mentioned the connection between being outdoors and mental health.
Yeah.
What what elaborate a little bit more on that, because I think people know that, but I think there's still people out there who maybe aren't super familiar with that.
Yeah, for sure. So I like to preface this by saying that, like, I grew up in New York. So I was so far removed from the outdoor realm just in general. And then when, like, being in the outdoors here in the South, there's like bugs and it's really hot and it's like all of the things. And so when I first got into the outdoors, I was like, this is miserable. I don't understand why, like, people are here. But then you start noticing it's a lot about the colors, like green being very calming, blue being very calming, just being outside and fresh air, all of that really plays into people who have like a sense of or who are struggling with anxiety and depression. There's been a
Yeah.
lot of studies that showcase being in the outdoors and doing some sort of activity in the outdoors really helps alleviate some of those symptoms, really at least for the time being when you're outside. And so I think that's why some of the mountaineers and things like that, are so intentional with their time in the outdoors and the activities that they choose to do because it does really help you and your mental health.
Yeah,
So
yeah, no,
yeah.
that's really cool. I'm glad that you brought that up, because it is in the world that we live in now with so much anxiety and the speed of things and
Yeah.
just the chaos. It is really really helpful to go outside and just walk. Just go for a walk. And it doesn't
Just
even
go
have to
for a
be like,
walk.
it doesn't have to be in like,
A
the
mountain.
wilds of
Yeah.
Canada or something. Like it
Yeah.
can just you can just go for a walk and just see some trees and you're like, all right, I'm good. I feel
Yeah.
better.
And for sure. The concept of being grounded, I'm sure you've heard of that too. Like that is also really helpful for people. So all of that really kind of played a role into us pivoting a little bit into the outdoor spectrum, which, like I said, never thought I'd be in because the bugs and the humidity, that's enough to like just kill me. So I'm like, all right, we're trying something new for sure.
Um, okay, so yeah, so you pivoted to going outdoors.
Yeah.
You've learned to love it now. Like you really just are enjoying it. You're having a great time.
Yeah, absolutely. But I also will say that like most of our like mountaineering trips and things like that, they are not here. They're like out west, they're in other areas of the world, and they're kind of at a higher elevation. And there are no mosquitoes at a high elevation. So that I think is the secret in and of itself. But we do a
Yeah.
lot of training here locally in Georgia. And I think over time I've just like grown to love it and to be one with the bugs. And that is okay too. So it's been
Yeah.
great.
It makes a huge difference. The amount of bugs that are here in Georgia. We're in Georgia for people who are listening.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's about to get bad here. In like the next month, it's gonna be bad.
Yeah. It is. It
It's gonna
is.
be
I'm not
terrible.
not looking forward to that. And it's funny too because now when we do these trips with kids, like I think it's really great to start bringing girls into the outdoors in like a younger age because, I think for some families and for some kids when they're growing up like me when I was in New York, like I was so far removed from that was not something that I thought would bring me like joy. And so it's really fun to bring kids in there to get them feeling comfortable. And again, with girls as well, like sometimes they're so far removed from it. It's nice to be like, all right, you can do this. Here's how you hike. Here are like the safety skills and things like that you need to be successful. So I think bringing kids into the outdoors at a young age is really beneficial for them too, which is great.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. So what what got you into this originally? Like what
Oh my
sparked the
gosh.
idea of like I want to do something involving traveling? Like what was that for you?
Well, I love how you said that there's like it's never as glamorous as it seems because like Ventry's Adventures started with us being stranded with 40 kids in Denmark. So we like just, totally normal. So I've always loved traveling. Like I went to the University of Georgia a lot because of their like study abroad program. That was kind of a big reason why I really wanted to go amongst other things. So I had known pretty early on that I wanted to get involved in like the international travel world. So then when I started teaching, I ended up like traveling whenever I had the opportunity to. I was constantly like looking at different places. But I had a teacher in high school that talked about living and traveling all over the world, and he would take kids. And I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. Like, I've always wanted to teach. The marine biology dream died just like everybody else's very early on. And so I was like, well, so I was like, okay, no, this could be really cool. Like, I think I want to teach also. And then when I teach, I think I really want to bring kids to the places that we're talking about. Like what better way to really encapsulate history than to bring them there? And so I started working with a company early on when I first started teaching, and that would kind of bring kids abroad. They designed the programs, they did the things, and that we would go abroad. We would have some instances where we were just stuck without like any sort of guide, any sort of tour director, like no one. We were completely on our own. So in Denmark, it was myself and a really good friend of mine. We were both the lacrosse coaches at the time. And we had our group of like 15 to 18 students. And then we had another group, I think, of 12 to 15 students from other schools, like all over the United States. They like had grouped us together in this one trip. Our tour guide was like nowhere to be found. Like we don't even know where it was. The other teachers from the other school, they had just decided that like they wanted to go on vacation. So I think they went to a bar and just like left us all with their kids and our
Sounds
kids.
right.
And so, yeah, the amusement park, we were at Tivoli Gardens in Copenhagen, Denmark, and it closed at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And nobody told us how to get back with like 40 something kids. So it was myself and my good friend at the time, and we we were trying to figure out how to get 40 kids on public transportation to get back to the hotel. The whole process, I think, took like 2 hours. We got finally back at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, never again. We are not doing this. This was like very challenging. We couldn't find the other teachers. The guy was nowhere to be found. So I think that next day was when my students were like, hey, Miss V, I think this is something you should consider doing because you got us home with strangers, random kids we didn't even know. Everyone was safe and sound and totally fine. And since you
Yeah.
travel, you should do it. So I did it. And my students actually from that school, they created the logo, they created like the social media. I had those kids come back and intern. Like it really was kind of a wonderful community affair, and that's how everything got started. So shout out to Tivoli Gardens in Copenhagen, Denmark, because that is what brought Ventry's Adventures to its
That is
foundation.
crazy. Wow.
I Yeah.
Why wait, why was the park open till 2 o'clock in the morning? That's insane.
Okay, because you know how like well, Europe everything is later, but you know how when you travel some places they have like extra hours at certain amusement parks? Well, Tivoli Gardens had their extra hours, and so we got to stay out really late and kind of enjoy everything. And it was one of the oldest amusement parks in the world. Like the roller coasters had people like I guess working the roller coaster while you were riding it, like the old school wooden ones where you had to like crank it up and down as you were like, oh yeah, it was it was so fun.
Jeez, yeah, the old
Super
wooden
safe.
roller coasters.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The wooden roller coasters are terrifying. When you're on
Yeah.
them, you're
Oh,
like, "Is
yeah.
this it? Is
Yeah.
today the
Especially
day?"
when you know that there's like no button to start and stop. It's just some guy that's like pushing it up and you're like, all right, cool. We'll see how that works for us. But it was amazing. 10 out of 10 recommend.
No, that's awesome. And okay, so that's what sparked Ventry's Adventures.
Yeah.
Um, Walk us through this journey. I mean, you've been doing this for 7 years now. It's not
Yeah.
been, like we were talking about beforehand, it's not been all like, this is great. I love it. There's been a lot of moments where you're like, okay, this is hard, and I kind of feel like quitting. I'm putting words in your mouth, so you can tell me your thoughts. But is grounding just a bunch of woo woo science? I get this question more times than I could count on one hand, two hands, 10 hands. I get this question a lot. Is my point. Grounding is absolutely effective and important to be doing on a daily basis. As someone who is avidly grounded, grounding means you just connect with the earth, bare skin to grass or dirt or the ocean or the lake or whatever. Connecting to the earth, grounding is absolutely amazing. Here's what happens: the free electrons from the earth pass into our bodies. So the electrical charge of the earth passes and reacts with our electrical charge as humans. And this helps to reduce. We absorb these free electrons, they go through our body and reduce inflammation, helps reduce stress, helps reduce anxiety because our body is able to finally calm down. What's happening all day long is we're insulated with rubber shoes, right? And then we're bombarded with, Wi-Fi and radiation, environmental toxins and food pollutions and all this stuff as our body all day long is fighting off all this crap that it's constantly bombarded with. As soon as we can ground and go ahead and let our bodies like actually detoxify, those other resources that were spent, getting rid of all that crap going on it's now put toward healing your body and healing your gut and healing your muscles and doing other more important things than just fighting off all this other crap that we're bombarded with on a daily basis. So grounding is super important, right? And I'm explaining this in layman's terms, but I hope this is at least a little bit clear. I would love it if you guys would check out Earth and Moon products, because at the very least, if you're not going to go ground for 40 minutes walking in the grass, buy yourself a grounding bed sheet or a grounding pad to stand on when you're working. It will make a difference, guys. It makes a huge difference, right? You can save yourself some money. You can save yourself 10%. Go to the link in the bio. Use my code. I think it's Kyle10. Either way, the code is in the show notes. Go there, check out the products. My recommendation is at the very least get a grounding pad, but I think you should get grounding sheets so you're sleeping grounded all night long, which would be amazing. Go check that out. Support a great company. Support your boy. Support yourself. Save some money along the way. I love you guys. Let's get back to the show. Love for you to
Yeah.
tell for the audience, like, what's this adventure been like? Because there's probably a lot of people out there who see entrepreneurs who are successful and are like, I want to do it, but it's hard.
Yes.
So anyways, we
Yeah.
just expand on that.
Well, I think I told you before we actually got on here that I was like, it's been like, we're starting the 7th year of Ventry's Adventures, which is just kind of insane to me. I guess we started in 2018, but our first trips didn't launch until 2019 and they were departing in 2020. So as you know, 2020 was like a really big year for everyone, because the world kind of shut down. So I think very early on, I was almost like, what am I doing? Because I started a company and put my whole like savings into something, and then there was a pandemic. And so
Yeah.
for me, I think it's such a challenge to learn how to pivot and to pivot in a way that is like beneficial to everybody that's involved with the journey. So for me, I think teaching really helped with that, because I'm sure if you have ever spoken with teachers, they have like great grandiose plans for the day. They get there in first period, their whole lesson plan just tanks, and you're like, oh my gosh. And you have to literally change it within 10 or 15 minutes, not even before your next class comes in order to like make it work, because you can't have a day that fails. Like, you can't just be like, all right, guys, like, here's a movie. We did our best today. We'll try it again tomorrow. You can't do that. It just, and I think that was really helpful with starting Ventry's Adventures during a pandemic, because I was like, all right, well, I refuse to quit. I put my savings here. I really believed in the messaging of trying to get kids out there and see the world. So I had to learn how to change and be adaptive. And that part I think is really challenging sometimes for business owners because they'll think like, oh my gosh, it's me, or oh my gosh, like I'm doing something wrong, and I
Yeah.
don't think that that's the case. I think sometimes maybe you have like the best of intentions, but you can still accomplish that even if you just change like one or two things to make you successful in that realm. So I think that part, it's always kind of the pivoting. Right now with the economy, people are really trying to decide, what they can do with their money at this point. It's hard for someone like me to be like, your kids will really benefit from a study abroad program when you're right now, there's layoffs or people are trying to afford groceries. Like, I think there are always going to be challenges when running a business. And if you are receptive to changing, and if you are receptive to growing with the times, I think that will definitely help. But yeah, I think it's been hard. Most people think that I just like travel the world. I'll get these messages, Kyle, and you'll die. They'll always be like, hey, so like, where in the world are you today? And I'm like, my office. Like, what? So I think that's always one of the biggest misconceptions is everyone's like, oh my gosh, your life is so hard. You're traveling the world. And I'm like, actually, it's more Excel spreadsheets and emails than you think. Um, and traveling with teenagers, while very enjoyable, is not a vacation. I feel like that is very important to say.
Yeah. Well, I venture to say it's probably like when you see parents traveling with kids, like in Instagram videos, and you're like, "Oh, that looks so
Yes.
fun." But if you ask
Yes.
them, they're like, "This was a nightmare." Like getting my kid dressed and on the plane and the whole thing was absolutely terrible. So it's probably similar to that, where like there's moments where it's fun, but you're like, "This is hard."
Yeah, I mean it is because you're dealing with. I mean, it used to be when I first started Ventry's Adventures, like I knew every single kid that was traveling all of the time because I only work with a certain amount of schools each year. I think it's really important for families to feel comfortable with where they're sending their kid, who they're sending their kid with, like why
Yeah.
this program matters. So for me, it was like I knew everybody. And now as it gets to be a little bit bigger and I work with some amazing teachers, yes, I'm a part of the planning process with them for about a year and a half. But I don't know all of the kids as well as I used to. So it's like what I may think would be an amazing part of the itinerary may not be amazing for like some of the personalities that are going on the trip. So again, that constant idea of like adapting on the fly is so important. Sometimes you just got to leave your pride aside and be like, all right, like this was not great. Like I should have probably done this activity instead of that activity. But again, as long as you're receptive to that and you grow and you're willing to make those changes, that's what matters. The relationship part matters. And I really think sometimes people just kind of throw that by the wayside when running a business. Like it's
Yeah.
great to make money, but the relationship part and being a part of core memories and having a mission that you truly stand behind, to me, that I think is much more important. And that will last you through any sort of like trial or tribulation that you have with your company for sure.
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned that. I was actually thinking about that this morning where when you run a business that's very community based, relational
Yeah.
based, like yours is, or even like mine with the fitness business, you're very intentional with these
Yeah.
customers. It's always this tension between scaling and making money, but not losing
Yep.
that connection with who you're working with and being able to really help them. So
Yeah.
it's like how doing that is like the Bermuda Triangle of business. It's like
It really is.
how do we do this?
Well, and it's so funny. So I one of the things that really helped me growing with the company, just like me as a business owner, was I knew the travel side. Like I was really well versed in the travel industry. The business industry, the business side, like all my degrees had nothing to do with that. So I learned very quickly to surround myself with people that were so much smarter than I ever was. And so I found myself a business mentor. He is the greatest person ever. Like he is, sometimes I feel like I call him and I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. Like help me with life. But he just really took me under his wing. And one of the things he asked me was like, okay, are you trying to be like this big, massive corporation or are you trying to be a practice? And I was like, I don't know what that means. If you could just real people terms it for me. A practice is very similar to like a dentist office, like you go to the same dentist that you've been to your whole life. And then when your dentist decides to retire, like maybe they sell the business or maybe they don't and they just close up shop and that was it. Versus like, these big multi-million dollar corporations that expand, 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 expand. And so I sat with that for a little bit and I was like, I really think I just want to be the practice. I love the community that I'm a part of. Like, we have so many big community drives and initiatives that we're rolling out within the next year. So for me, I stopped with that whole like back and forth of, growth of this massive corporation to just being like, okay, I want to make sure we sustain because what we're doing is great. And I love, being a part of the community and the mission and what we stand for. And for me, that is success. Like, I think knowing your definition of what success looks like for you at an earlier time also helps with growing a business. Like, you don't have to make X amount of dollars to be successful. Sometimes success can be your relationships, your impact, and like what you leave behind, your legacy. And so for me, that is more important, and helping kids and families is more important than like the amount of money that I think I would make scaling. I just, to me, don't want to do that, which some people think is crazy, but that's where we are.
Yeah. Well, what's funny about that is it's very similar to like what the CEO of Chick-fil-A says. I think it was the founder of Chick-fil-A. He was like, I'm going to paraphrase it, but basically he goes, if we're so good, like our customers will force us to grow. So it's like
Yeah.
the intention was never to grow and be massive, as far as I
Yeah.
know. But they were so good at delivering a great product, and it tastes delicious, and my pleasure, customer service was awesome,
Yes.
that it
Yeah.
just it just forced it to grow. And I'm not promoting Chick-fil-A because I'm the fitness guy, but from a business standpoint, they've always
There's grilled
done
chicken.
a they've done a fantastic job. But very similar to your point, it's like,
Yeah.
who knows where your business will grow, but if you just focus on being intentional and loving these
Yeah.
kids and providing great value, in 10 years, it might be this massive thing, but you've kept the value of
Yeah.
it the same, which would be really
Yeah.
cool. But who knows?
Yeah, for sure. And it's nice because I am getting so many referrals from amazing teachers and members of the community just by word of mouth. So we are growing with that because of that. So it is kind of like, I guess, the Chick-fil-A model without even realizing it. But it's being very intentional with that growth and also not growing faster than you should, right? And then like, leaving people back that were like your very first supporters from the very beginning. Like, I could probably tell you the first 10 students that ever went on a trip with me still to this day. Like, now most of them are married with kids, which is crazy to me. And it's funny to see like how they grow and develop, and some of them going into education and wanting to do the same thing simply because of a Ventry's adventures is insane. But to me, that is just makes it all worth it. So,
That's really awesome. That's cool to hear. So what's the coolest place you've been to so far?
ooh,
Or
that question.
well, here,
I
list
get it.
list
Yeah, it's
some of the
always so
places you've
hard.
been.
Yeah.
Let's tell the audience some of the cool places you've been, but then maybe narrow it down to like a few cool places you've been that you like really liked.
Okay. So I tell people all the time, my favorite country in the world is South Africa. Like, I have loved that country every time I have gone. It's just been like, with kids, it's been amazing. With adults, it's been amazing. With me by myself, it's been amazing. So I always recommend South Africa, the food, the people.
Molecular hydrogen. What on earth is molecular hydrogen? Okay, well, before I go into that, let's talk about this. The vast majority of people are living in a state of chronic inflammation. And even if they don't notice the inflammation that's in their body, it's there. It's there in everyone. And unless you are taking proactive steps to reduce the amount of inflammation that's in your body, it's probably a lot higher than you would like to know. Because here's the reality: there's pollution in the water, there's pollution in the food, there's environmental toxins in the air, stress just from busy lifestyles. It is insane. Well, here's where molecular hydrogen comes in. When you drink hydrogen water, which is two hydrogen atoms bonded together and then fused into water, when you drink that, it goes in and helps reduce the amount of oxidative stress in the body. Oxidative stress is basically like the inside of your body rusting. It is what leads to aging, chronic inflammation, disease, illness, ailments, all of the things that you do not want in your body. Molecular hydrogen, when you drink this water, helps to combat that. And it does a fantastic job at that. It is a selective antioxidant, which means it goes in and pinpoints the specific things in your body that need to be corrected, healed, whatever, and it leaves the other functions alone. You don't want an antioxidant that goes in and just kind of hits everything. You actually don't want that. You want selective antioxidants. Molecular hydrogen does that. What's cool is I did a podcast with a guy from Echo Water. they created a flask, basically a bottle that you put water into, you press a button, and it infuses that water with hydrogen so then you can right there on the spot drink however many ounces of hydrogen water. And you can do this 2, 3, 4, 5 times a day. It really doesn't matter. There's not too much that you can drink. It's absolutely incredible. You can go listen to that podcast. It's listed. I'll put a link to it in the show notes actually, so you guys can go listen to it. But what I'm getting at is you can go check out this flask for yourself. You can go to the link in my bio. You can save yourself 10%. You can go check it out. It comes with a 5-year warranty, so if anything ever happens, you can get a new one. It is absolutely awesome. I drink it every single day. It's made a huge difference in my recovery, my health, all the things. I would love for you guys to check that out and experience the same thing that I've been experiencing. Again, save yourself 10%. Go to the show notes, click the link in there, and then you can also listen to the podcast that's linked right below it, so you can go get some more information from the founder of Echo Water. Anyways, love you guys. Let's get back to the show.
The history, the shark diving, the safaris, like all of that is just amazing. We've had some really funny stories with kids who have traveled there. And so I always recommend like a good family trip is South Africa, because they'll love the things that, occur there. So that's been fun. I loved Bali. Like that has just been my very much
Oh
like
yeah.
my eat, pray, love moment. I think all girls at some point want to venture there. And so I was living there for periods at a time and just loved it. So I thought that was pretty great.
Yeah.
Um,
Run into
I don't know.
James Franco.
No, I didn't. That's unfortunate. I just I feel like this is kind of an unpopular opinion, but the more I travel, the more I take my vacations away from Europe. Like Europe is great, I think, for people who are just getting into like the travel realm. And, if you're young and you're in your 20s and you're wanting to backpack, I think Europe is wonderful. Like I'm Italian, so I will always be biased towards Italy being like my favorite European country. Um, but I will say, like, for the most part, I'm like looking at my map. I will say, like, my favorite travel experiences have happened like in Africa, or they've happened in South America, or they've happened in Southeastern Asia. And I think it's just, I don't know. I think just traveling solo and, culturally, it's been so different. The people being so great. I think my best memories have been from those trips for sure.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. South Africa is a really incredible place. So,
yeah,
and I've only been to Cape Town in
which
South
is
Africa.
amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like it is. When I left there, this might sound corny to the audience, but like when I left there for a long time, whenever I wanted to like meditate or feel peaceful, like I would go back to sitting on the beach in my mind in Cape Town
Amazing.
because it was
Yeah.
just like the water, Table Mountain was right behind me, and like the
Yes.
sunshine was like the perfect temperature. I was like, this
Yeah.
place is amazing. Oh my gosh,
Yeah. It is.
Cape Town in South Africa is so cool.
Yeah, I loved it. So for me, I would say like Cape Town or South Africa is my favorite. Indonesia is my favorite. But I think a better way for me to answer your question is like my favorite travel experiences where those have happened. Like Taylor Swift in Paris, night one on the European tour, life changing. We'll never, ever, ever, ever forget that. Like that. So you think about things
Oh,
like that. Oh yeah, Poland, we got locked out of our hostel that we were staying in, and so we had to fit like I mean there's just the stories, I think the memories of what happens when you're at these places to me kind of dictate like what is going to be like the best places I've traveled to versus like this country is amazing versus, Taylor Swift night one in Paris will change your whole life. So it just depends on where you
yeah.
are.
Yeah.
So
Well, I like that you said that because it sounds more like the moments make the trip,
yes.
the
Yeah.
people make the trip, as
Yes.
opposed to like just the environment. While the environment can be important and it can be really cool, it sounds like these memories are almost the most important, and like that's
Yeah.
what's made the trips. And that's fascinating that you said that.
Yeah, the memories they do. They make the trip. And I will tell you, and I think my mountaineers know this about me. My kids' trips are hilarious. Like some of my all-time favorite travel memories and experiences have been on some of these kids' trips because they are so far out of their comfort zone, and they just say exactly what they're thinking, like no filter, none whatsoever, and you're like, and you're just like, what? And so some of my all-time favorite travel memories have been on some of these programs, just because the kids are hilarious, and you put them in these experiences, and you're just like what? Okay. And so it's been great.
Yeah. Are your trips I apologize if this is a dumb question.
No.
Are the trips is it more educational, or is it more like we're going to have fun, or is it a mix of both? Because obviously they're students and they're in school. It's not just like, hey, we're going to go party, but like
Yeah,
so
no.
like do you yeah, like
No.
let me be very clear about that. Sorry.
Yeah.
There's no partying going on.
Yeah.
But like what's the balance there, I guess, between education and having fun and the whole thing, cuz
Oh
I'm
yeah.
curious.
So the nice thing is, being a high school teacher and now like being on the college level, you can kind of see a little bit what colleges are looking for. Because when you're doing this for like middle school or high school students, and you're speaking with parents about why these programs hold such value, the number one thing that we always say and that we stand behind with each program is that colleges or any sort of internship or any sort of scholarship, they love when you are taking things that are educationally based or you are learning outside of like your school day. So they don't really specify like what constitutes learning, but the fact that you are putting effort into your academics or your education or your sport or whatever your life goal is outside of those particular hours is wonderful. So our programs are very much a mix of both like the adventure fun side, but also the learning side. So in particular, our South Africa program is our flagship program. It is like probably one of our most popular ones. And so we will design these programs based on certain curricular attributes. So history, there's a lot of world history, obviously, that occurred in South Africa. So we pull from some of the Georgia state standards and we're like, okay, historically, this is where South Africa fits. We also will do a lot of environmental science and biology there as well. And sometimes instead of just taking kids to a museum, we work with like the White Shark Company in South Africa. It is a conservation group that's run by marine biologists, and their whole focus is looking at like the great white migration patterns. So the kids then get on the boat, they're able to cage dive, they're tagging sharks, they're finding like the migration patterns. So there is that element of like, oh my God, we're in a cage and like these are the great white sharks and we're doing all of these things. But then it's also like looking at the data, tracing the shark migration movements. It's all of that. So it
Yeah.
really is both. And when the kids come back, they're able to be like, no, we actually did learn something, not just like, you know, don't stay out at a certain time. It's like, here's what we learned about history in the museum. Here's how we did science with the Great White Shark Company. And it's been really, really meaningful for them for sure.
Yeah, no, that's cool. They're never gonna forget that. Like, whatever they learn on
Yeah.
the trips like that, they're never going to forget. That is so cool.
We we had this kid, Kyle, I have to tell you the story. And if he hears this, he'll know exactly who he is. So we one of so one of our very first experiences with South Africa, we took the kids obviously like cage diving. And I always like to preface this when I tell parents, like it's not some guy named Bob on a boat. Like it is very safe. Like we're not, it's something that we really take a lot of pride in making sure that we are working with the right companies. So we get out there and we're doing it where they film Shark Week in Shark Alley. That's who we work with in that area. So again, very safe. All the procedures are there. What they don't show you when you go out on a boat is that like it's super rocky because you're out in the open ocean. There's like no land around you to make sure that like, the boat is staying still and fine. So the first thing that you learn very quickly is that everyone is prone to seasickness. Everyone is prone to seasickness. And there's no need, yeah, there's no need to chum the water if you have people that are like puking off the side of the boat. So there is that. But I will never forget. We have these kids, they're in the cage, they're like waiting for the great white sharks to come. And one student in particular was getting like very impatient that he wasn't seeing anything. And I'm like, it is nature. What, like, there's no way for me. Like, we literally have kids chumming the side of the water because they're seasick. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe they're just not here. So he was so annoyed. He was taking his GoPro and he was just like up against like the rings of the cage, was just kind of like flinging it back and forth. And I guess the migrations like really just annoyed some sharks. So we had a shark pop up and like ram the front side of the boat. And he made a sound I've never heard a male make in my whole life. It was like the most high pitched shrieking sound of just, and it was, I've never laughed so hard. The guys on the boat were like, see, don't be a pain. You have to like, they will come when they're ready. And it was wonderful. It was absolutely amazing. They had the best time, but they were like, oh my God, that was insane. So just got to
That's
be patient with
hilarious.
nature.
Yeah. So so it was like the GoPro annoyed the sharks and made them. Is that what
Yeah.
you said? And it made
Yeah, the
them.
GoPro, it ignored like the vibrations that it made with the GoPro because they're very sound sensitive. So with the GoPro, like kind of ringing up and back and forth of like the cage, just like hitting like bop, 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 just really annoyed the shark. So the shark popped up and
Oh,
hit the front and was like, I'm here. You've summoned me. And he just
you
lost his mind.
you've summoned me.
Yeah, it was, and everyone else was like, "Oh my god, this is so cool," and this poor kid was like, "Oh my god," and I was like, "Maybe just calm down with your GoPro and you'll be fine." And he was like, "Okay," but he was like, "Best
Jeez.
day ever! I am the shark whisperer." I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it was good.
You and your GoPro or the shark
Yeah,
whisperer. That's
the shark
hilarious.
whisperer. Yeah,
Um, okay, I had this question as well as when you were chatting about this.
yeah.
Ha- how do you navigate the dangers with traveling?
Oh,
Not to
such a good
get
question.
not to go from the high note to a more serious note,
No,
but
I think it's great, and so that's why being a small business or a practice, if you will, is so great because you get these connections with where you're traveling. And then also you get these connections with your parents. And so as you are creating these trips and you're kind of like looking at the danger levels, you're able to kind of tell them like this is happening versus this is not. So we never travel to places that are at a level 3 or a level 4 for the US state government, like travel advisory. I don't know if you are familiar, but the government has like a level 1 through 4. And so one means like, one is like Iceland. Okay. We go, everything is fine. Like there's no imminent danger. Maybe a volcano erupts, maybe it doesn't, but everything is like totally fine. Level 2 is actually like what most countries are in the world, even the United States, where it's just like exercise, increased caution. And so what that typically means is like you're not going to leave your cell phone out on a table, which is like the biggest thing that we do with kids, right? Like you can't, it's not like here in your bubble where like you leave your phone on your table, it's fine. Like someone will just come and grab it and keep going and like you won't even know. So we only travel to level 1 or level 2 countries with people, adults and or kids. So we kind of mitigate that danger. The other thing we do is we have meetings kind of gearing up for departure. We plan about a year out, so we'll have maybe like 5 meetings. And one of those meetings is usually like cultural differences and how to make sure that you are being mindful of in the country that you're traveling. So whether it be like religious differences or political differences or like keeping your cell phone out, like what are some things that you can do to kind of like mitigate your own personal risk when traveling? Like Barcelona is great, but it's one of the number 1 cities in the world to get pickpocketed in. So it's like making sure your kids know like what to keep on your person, where to put your purse, like all of that. And then finally, from a business standpoint, like we have a wonderful crisis management team that really deals with like the bigger things that the kids would never even really know was going on. So if there is a volcano that erupts, if there is some sort of like all of a sudden political issue that happens and a government is overthrown and something else gets put in place, we have like a wonderful crisis management team that will mitigate all of those details and make sure that everyone is safe. So for kids, the easy part is just being like, you have to be in your room at this particular time. And in some places, we tape the doors to make sure that they're following the rules like they're supposed to. And it's just that extra step. And parents are happy, kids feel safe, and it works.
the old tape in the door trick.
The old taping of it. We get reviews all the time. Like even on our 8th grade field trips that are overnight, they'll be like, "We love the trip. Next time it'd be really cool if you didn't tape the doors." I'm like, okay, like that's not gonna change. But obviously they can come out if it's an emergency, but typically it's not for emergency purposes, and so that's why we stand behind the taping of the doors for sure.
My first thought when you mentioned that was like, I want nagging injuries, poor sleep, and wrinkled skin. All three things that I think all of us agree really sucks. But you know what the three things have in common? They benefit from red light therapy. So something that I have been doing recently in my own life has been working with this company, Loombox. They sent me this product. If you're just listening, it's just a square or so like a rectangular white box with a bunch of dots on it where the red light comes out of. It has been a huge game changer for me. So especially for me as an athlete, I deal with a lot of nagging injuries. I will put this thing on my elbow, my knee, my back, my neck. I'll put it anywhere that I'm feeling pain. And I'm not kidding you. The reduction in pain I get almost immediately is amazing. But I've healed from tendonitis far quicker than I ever should heal, especially in my knee. I've had jumpers in my knee for a while, and it is like completely gone from red lighting this. So I've been able to get back to squatting and jumping and all the things. It's been awesome. What's really cool about red light therapy, though, is it has to be a specific nanometer. So there's two types. There's red light and then there's near infrared. Red light, you need to be around that 660 nanometer range, and near infrared, you need to be around 850 nanometers. And this thing covers both. So if you want to hold it on your skin, like put their little glasses on, hold it on your skin, it's great for collagen production. If you want to put it on in your room when you're going to bed, it kind of helps you get into like sleep mode. So it increases the amount of restful sleep you're going to get at night. Or if you just want to put it topically right onto an injury, you're going to increase the healing time. You're going to drastically reduce the time it takes to heal. I don't want to throw out some crazy number percentage, but you're going to speed up their healing recovery time. So it's really cool. Anyways, you can go to the link in the description. You can save yourself $260 if you want to check this out. If you've got anything going on, or you want to sleep better, or if you want to just look prettier, go to the link in the description. Save yourself some money. Support these guys. They're really, really great. Support your boys. Support yourself. Love you guys. Back to the show. I wonder if there's a way to tape it back.
No, that's why it's so magical, because you have to get somebody else to do it for you. And then so somebody is always going to be out of the room. So that's why you have to make sure. Yeah.
Man, that is funny. All right, well, that's good to know. What about when you travel by yourself? Well,
You're like, that's good to know, the tape.
well, I mean, so what about when you travel by yourself? Like over the years, like have you ever worried when you travel by yourself? I mean, do you feel, I mean, especially being a woman, do you feel more vulnerable in a sense? I mean, I
That's
feel
a
like that'd
great
be.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I'm sure you can tell I've never met a stranger. I love to talk. And so I always feel like, for me, now that I travel so much with groups, like traveling solo is just, I need to, like, it's just something I have to do once or twice a year to really like reset. No, I feel like there's some areas that I would not, or some countries I would not travel to, based on being a solo female traveler, simply because there's like lots of reviews in like female solo traveler like groups and things like that, and you start thinking about certain people's experiences, and you read what certain people have gone through, and you're just kind of like, okay, I don't really know if I would like to put myself in that position. It doesn't necessarily mean that that country is unsafe. It just means that potentially don't go there by yourself. Maybe go with like a group of girls, or just a group in general. So for me, what I try and do to kind of, again, mitigate that risk is I, really do some research of the country of where I'm going to travel to. I will always put myself in like a safer part of town. So, if you're traveling to somewhere and you feel like it's unsafe, I would definitely stay in like the city center, places that are close to where you need to be. I would find, like, for me, the easiest way for me to find friends is I will drop into a CrossFit gym anywhere in the world, because like it's the same like-minded people. You're usually traveling solo, or you're maybe there for a period of time. And so like instantly you find like a friend group. And like I said, I love to talk. So like I always leave with friends. So then it's like you have like your little group of people, you like go here, not there. So I think if you're traveling solo, there should always be an opportunity for you to jump into a place, to meet members of the community, to meet other people that are there. And that will help tell you, like, go to this place, not that place, this area of town. Don't go there when it's dark. It would be similar to like traveling through Atlanta, I think, for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's good. Yeah, traveling. I mean, I think since the movie Taken, it's like taken
Oh
like
my God. That is
popularized
such
the
a
whole thing.
misconception. Yes. I say, I'll stay at hostels and people are like, is that even safe? I'm like, yes, it is not what you see on social media. Like, everything is fully accredited. There's all these kinds of reviews. If you're going to stay at a hostel, hostelworld.com, highly recommend. It'll tell you there's all these reviews, all the safety ratings. Like, it's not going to be what you see on TV unless you make it that way, and you want to go to a place like that. But that's like so far removed from reality. So,
Yeah, yeah. There's this. It's funny you say it, because there's this girl I worked with at Lapeer.
yeah.
She just turned 18. Before she turned 18, she had traveled all over the world by
Oh,
herself.
awesome.
And
Good for her.
it's like, do you ever worry about, like, the same questions I'm asking you? Like, I don't, what about the movie Taken? And I don't, you can be careful. Like,
Yes.
I'm like her removed dad, and like,
Yeah.
I'm like worried about her. And she's staying at these hostels, and I'm asking the same questions you're talking about now. Like, weren't hostels crazy and dangerous? But she's like, she traveled all over the world and has been totally fine. I'm like, that's amazing. Good for
Yeah.
you.
And I think what's funny to kind of expand on that point, like, I think if there's a guy traveling solo, like nobody asks that question. Like, do you ever feel dangerous or
Yeah.
do you feel like it's unsafe? And so I think sometimes, I think there would be more women that would travel abroad solo, if maybe there wasn't that like preconceived notion that because you're a woman traveling solo, that it could potentially be dangerous. I think the dangers are the same if you are, a male versus a female. I don't want people to think that, women are, like these small people that like can't, travel out and see the world and do it by themselves, because they absolutely can. And there are so many resources available for that. But yeah, I always think it's funny because whenever I tell people like I travel solo, that's their first thing. Like, do you feel okay? Like, is it dangerous? Like, can you handle yourself? And I'm like, yes to all of the above questions. Very similar to me, like, driving to parts of Atlanta, you still have to be just as alert, which is really sad, like going through a parking deck with your key out, making sure everything is fine. But
Yeah.
you can do that abroad. You'll be totally okay. So
Yeah.
sure.
No, that's a very good point. What about earlier when you mentioned like getting locked out of your hotel? You say like, getting locked out of your hotel, and
Yeah.
you mentioned just like these things that happen that would not necessarily be deemed like good things, but they make good stories and good memories.
Yeah.
You mentioned you tell it with such cheer,
Yeah.
and I'm
You
curious. Like I'm curious how I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this question.
am I
In
this
that,
happy all the time? Is that what you're
well,
gonna?
were you this happy in that moment? I guess I think it's
Yeah.
important for people to understand, like, how do you navigate that on the trip and make it fun, not get overwhelmed and stressed and flustered and angry, or do you experience that and you just figure out how to like cope with it and not react? I'm just fascinated.
No, so that's a great question. My friends will tell you that I am like the happiest, most positive, optimistic person you will meet. I am very much golden retriever vibes. I feel like if Ventry's Adventures didn't have a mountain emblem, it would be a golden retriever because that's my personality. And I think there's two things to your point. One, just because you're happy and positive and optimistic does not mean that you're like not taking care of the situation and being very cautious. But I feel like in travel there are so many things that pop up that are completely out of your control, whether it be like a volcano in Iceland or getting locked out of your hotel. I lost my phone in the Grand Canyon. Everybody else was panicking, everyone. I was the most like cool, calm, and collective person. Like, there's nothing you can do. Worrying about it, stressing about it now in this moment is not good. Like, it's my phone, why are you stressing? Like, it's just, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
So so to your point, yes, I'm always very calm. I think with being in the industry as long as I have and having people count on me, one, parents for their kids, their kids' safety, two, kids, they trust me when I travel with them. And then also three, these adults on these mountaineering trips, like I am essentially in charge of their lives in some of these situations. And so, what you cannot do is you cannot get angry, you cannot panic, you cannot lose sight of what is important, which is making sure that everybody's like safety and well-being is intact. Like for me, I don't care. If I'm traveling solo and I get locked out of my hotel, okay, well that was, something happened, we got to deal with it. I guess I'm just going to have to check in somewhere or I'll speak with someone. Like, it's very, whatever, it's just me. For people that I'm traveling with, I think it is important to still be super positive because things happen, but then also be calm. Because if you are the face of this whole program and what's going on and you lose it, everybody else is going to lose it as well. And you start creating like pandemonium over things that are like, again, not even in your control. So yeah, I'm a really happy, positive person. My best friend, she will tell you, we traveled together for like 2 weeks in Italy. I was so go with the flow. Italians, they're so slow. They don't like, trains come when they feel like it. There's a schedule, but like, do they really abide by it? And I'm just like, whatever, it'll be totally fine. And it's funny because it drives some people absolutely bonkers. And then I'm just like, well, what is worrying gonna like, it's a train or we're locked out of the hotel or somebody is on strike. Like, we're not going to be able to change that. Like, we're not going to be like, excuse me, please go back to work. Like, what? Just ride it out. Wait till it happens. It'll be fine. So, yeah, I am this happy and this positive all the time. And it makes for great stories because normally it's like person A, very cool, calm. Person B is like, why are you not panicking? And I'm like, what
Yeah.
is there to panic about? It's fine.
Yeah, that's really funny. The Italian thing cracks me up. Yeah, there's a schedule, but like, yeah,
Here they go. Yeah. And that's what I always tell parents and kids when we do these European trips, especially over the summer. I'm like, we have a schedule, but the schedule is probably going to change. Like, for example, there are things that we do it that a lot of the parents won't even know until the trip is over. We did a Paris trip last year. We were taking the train to Disneyland Paris, as one does when visiting Paris. And the whole city went on strike. They just decided they didn't want to work. They were upset about over tourism. So what they did was they just shut down the city for the day. So we knew, like, we have people we work with that can determine like when the strikes are happening. Like, they're actually not as unplanned as you think. Like, they're all out there on all the channels. Like, we're striking today. So what we do is we like, okay, cool. So we call our partners and we're just like, all right, we need a bus. We need to make sure we get these kids to Disneyland Paris and back. And so like all of this stuff could be happening when the kids are asleep or when the parents are going about their day. Like, we have the problem, we solve the problem. The kids they're like, oh, we're going on a bus today, and like that's it. It doesn't need to be this whole like chaotic scene, especially if it's just little things like we're going from train to bus or we
yeah.
have to reroute something because it's closed. Like, you just got to keep a level head. And I'm really proud that I can do that. I feel like that's really helpful for sure.
You know what you would absolutely annihilate? So
Oh
I'll
no.
tell I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this. It's a kind of a funny story, but it's along the lines of what you're talking about, the adaptability piece.
Yeah.
In the strength conditioning world, they when they're interviewing new strength coaches, I don't know if everyone does this, but my strength coach did. What's up, you guys? Super quick interruption to the podcast. If you've ever struggled with energy, if you've ever struggled with feeling flat, maybe you're getting sick more often than you want, I'm not going to say that this is a miracle drug. What I am going to say is I do think organ meats could be super, super helpful for you. This is actually something I recommend all my clients. These specifically come from a guy I know personally and I've done podcasts with. His name is Michael Coomer. His company, MK Sups, specializes in organ meats. Now, this right here is a blend of like heart, spleen, pancreas, all of them. You can get individual products from his product line. It has been a game changer for me. I take them literally every single morning. I do not get sick, like ever. My energy feels great. My training recovery has been awesome. I've noticed a significant difference in taking them. And what's great about these is it's far more bioavailable than anything else you're going to get. So eating a good diet is awesome. It's imperative. I don't want to overstate that. But what I mean is, if you're just going to take regular supplements with like synthetic versions of this stuff, it's not very bioavailable. Whereas when you take organ meats, like things like vitamin A, B12, iron, zinc, all that stuff is really, really well absorbed into the body when you take organ meats. So if you want to go get some, go to the link in my description, use code Bernier at checkout for 15% off. Or you can go to mksubs.com and at checkout put the code in Bernier to save yourself 15%. Go support Michael Coomer, support your boy, support yourself. Love you guys. Back to the show.
Okay.
What they'll do is they'll bring a strength coach in and they'll say, all right, they'll ask all the questions, do all the things. We'll get to this part and be like, okay, and for 2 minutes, I want you to tell me everything you can do with a pencil and a pizza box. Go. That's all
Oh,
they'll say. And the whole point of it is how creative and how think on the fly can you
yeah.
be and
I
just
love
keep
that.
going. Because, and especially in the strength conditioning world, you'll have an athlete that will come in and it's chaos and they're like, hey, I have X, Y, and Z going on. What do I need to do? And you're like, and you got to give them an adaptation. And you go, hey, we'll do this movement instead, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. But you got to keep your eyes on all the athletes. It can be really stressful, similar to you, where it's like, I didn't plan a strike, but we got to figure
Yeah.
out something. I think if you were in that interview room, you would absolutely destroy that 2 minute task. You'd say the craziest
Yes.
off the wall stuff. It'd be
I'm so
hilarious.
excited. That's amazing. Yeah, I think too, and this goes back to being a business owner. You have to be willing to adapt and you have to be level headed. Like, at the time, everything that was going on with COVID and then a recession, like, it does make business really hard. And you're in this constant battle with yourself. Like, am I doing right by people? Am I doing right by like the mission? Am I failing? Like, I feel what I've learned from people who have been successful as entrepreneurs too is that you have to deal with these kinds of issues like head on. And problems are actually a blessing because it gives you the opportunity to adapt, to problem solve, to think on your feet. And this whole thing of like doubt, like, am I even doing the right thing? Like, is this like what that I feel like as long as you continue to care so much about what you're doing, that will continue to stay with you until you decide to like hang it up. So for me,
Mm.
even though again, super positive, cool, calm, and collective, I'm always in my mind, like when everything is done, I am like my own worst critic. I'll sit down and be like, oh, that could have been better, that could have been better, that could have been better. And then you see the reviews and everyone had like the most amazing time. And I'm like, okay, I can never like lose sight of or forget about the side of me that's like, you always want to make things better for people. And so I just do it with golden retriever vibes. It's the difference.
Golden retriever vibes. I love that.
Yeah. Thanks.
Um, let's. This is my attempt to go deep. All right,
Ooh,
because
okay.
the Straightforward podcast, we like to go deep with things most times. What's the what's the closest you've gotten to quitting and to not wanting to do this?
Ooh, this is good. Um, well, I will say not the closest I've come to quitting because I don't think I mean I just love what I do so much. What I think hurts me the most is I or the hardest thing for me is I sometimes take things very personally and I sometimes have a hard time separating myself from the company. Like my name is Ventry, so I am Ventry's Adventures. And the best piece of advice I actually got was from my dad. And he told me that no matter what you do, 10% of the people are always going to be unhappy. No matter what you do, 10% is always going to be unhappy. And as you continue to grow, the 10% is just going to get louder, and you're going to think that it's everybody doesn't like what you're doing or everybody is really upset with you. And it's not, it's just because you have a bigger portion of people in your 10%. So for me, I think the hardest thing is every now and again you get some emails that are just like not very nice, or you get some comments from people who are not very nice, and it is or people will lie and try and take advantage, and that to me that's really hard because I always like to see the good in people, and those are the days that like rock me the most. And I think we've touched on too, like being a female business owner, I've had to deal with some things that I think like that probably aren't as prevalent to some of like the men that run their own companies. Just like comments and levels of inappropriateness, and having to, you know, really draw firm boundaries and walk away from things and just be put in these like it's just that's the thing. I think so highly of people and I feel like the world there's filled with so much good, and my hardest days are the days when it just seems like that's not there. And those are the days where I have to, you know, go for a run, hit the gym, take a step back and reset, because not everyone is like that. It's just a small group, but those are the days that are the hardest for sure.
Yeah, yeah. It's unfortunate when you're trying to do something that you love, and then that happens, and
Yeah.
you do, does it ever? I don't want to put words in your mouth. Does it ever taint what you do? Does it ever like? Do you become jaded in any way when you experience those challenges?
I think that it makes me more thick skinned, not so much jaded. I think it gives me the ability to be able to handle more and be like much more tough than I thought I was.
Mm,
I do get frustrated. And I think it's so the biggest thing I will say is I've had certain people that I've worked with in the past that they have made comments about like, you know, things that are not professional, right? And you keep saying like, no, no, no. And then finally they like it's just like it's just not right. And so that's where I get really hard and I'll take like a step back and look at things and just be like, I don't know if that's right for me because I just don't understand why certain people would think like that would be okay. Um and so that's been the hardest part, and I try not to get jaded. I try to still see the good in people. Typically what would just happen is I'll just cancel that contract and be like absolutely not, no, like I refuse to put myself in a situation like that, and that's how we'll just move on from there.
yeah, no, that's smart. Yeah, getting developing thick skin. Oof, that's probably one
So
of the best.
hard.
It's really hard, but it's probably one of the best skill sets to have. Is like
Yeah.
learning how to. I don't want to say not take things personal because sometimes things are personal. Sometimes they are, but like
Yeah.
developing that ability to just like let it roll off your back. But
Yeah.
like you said, draw firm boundaries, do what you got to do, and just like keep moving on, not let it
Yeah.
affect you.
Yeah.
That's really really challenging.
Yeah, it is definitely it's been very hard. And I think that, like I said, and it's not saying like man versus woman or whatever. I think everyone may have situations where they go in and they walk in and you're just like, you're really excited about something. Like, for example, one, what such thing was I was really excited about working with the school. I was really pumped about this field trip that we were going to bring to the community.
Hmm.
Come to find out that the leadership, the only reason why they wanted to talk to me was because leadership thought that I was attractive. And so I was really upset because I'm like, here I am being so excited about like presenting this opportunity to the school and the community. And it almost felt like I didn't even earn it. Like you didn't even, like you may have not even liked what I was presenting to the community because you were just solely like focused on the way that I had looked. And
Yeah.
that's how the conversation went. And I was just kind of like, no. And I just like, respectfully, I'm going to have to decline because it was just not a situation I wanted to put myself in. And, business, like nothing personal, it's just business. But at the same time, like I don't want to grow that much or that badly to where like I would compromise my integrity or my mission or what I stand for. Like, absolutely not. So
Yeah.
those are the situations that are tough for sure.
Yeah. No, that is really tough. How long do these contracts take to work out? Like, well, or like, okay, like it's from the time you go to a school or school approaches you to the time the trip actually happens.
Yeah.
It's a long time, right?
Yes, it is a long time. So it's a great question. Normally, it's about a year, maybe anywhere from like 12 to 14 months when we do these big international trips. One, because we do payment plans with parents. Like, I totally understand with like trips are expensive and like ours in particular, not that they're expensive, but they include everything like airfare, all your meals, all the activities. So when you have like a package deal of what you're going through, like people aren't just going to drop everything like all in one lump sum. And I know that and I very much understand that. So we always come up with like payment plans and different fundraising ideas. And so
Yeah.
between that and then getting your parents ready to like send their kids abroad with all the paperwork and like the passports takes some time. So usually it's about a year.
Yeah. Wow. That is a long time. How the heck do you plan out all the meals,
Yeah.
all how do you do all of that for an international trip? You just like pick out restaurants and you're like day one here, lunch
Yeah.
here, like literally just
Well,
do that.
yeah, it's kind of so the food part I think is the most challenging. And I always tell teachers, I'm like, listen, there's some schools that really want all the meals that are included. We always include breakfast. We'll normally do like a welcome and a farewell dinner. But after that, I'm like, guys, the kids are going to want to eat something different. Usually, if you have a group, they're only going to take reservations at like a Western style restaurant. So if you're going to go to Italy, you're not going to eat truly authentic Italian food if you're, going with a group reservation and we pick everything out. So lately, a lot of schools have kind of detracted from that, which I totally approve. And so they'll do like, we'll have free time activities like with the teachers and the chaperones. And then we'll be like, here's the area. There's tons of good places for the kids to try and eat. Make sure you're in a bigger group, like 4 or 5 people. And then they go and they do it that way. Highly
That's
recommend.
cool.
So
That's
much
really
better.
cool.
Yeah.
Funny story. I got kicked out of a restaurant in Paris when when I was
No.
yeah.
Oh my
I
God.
actually I didn't even get kicked out. I just wasn't allowed to enter. It was the most embarrassing thing.
No. Was it because you spoke English? They're like very, very, must speak
No,
French when you go to Paris.
I did learn that, and no, they were. It wasn't because of that. It was because I went to this Euro shop that was right next to where my friends were like sitting down outside to eat. So
Yeah.
I went and got a Euro, and then
Oh,
I
yeah.
was gonna go sit down with my friends and eat the Euro while they were doing their thing. The owner of the restaurant was like, "No, get out!" Like yelled
Oh,
at me,
yeah.
and I was like,
Yeah.
"Ah!" And so I went and I had to walk this area by myself while my friends
Oh,
just sat there and ate. I was
yeah,
so
for sure.
embarrassed. But
No.
yeah, I learned that lesson really, really quickly. Don't do that
Yeah.
in really anywhere. But that was bad.
See, if you would have gone on Adventures Adventures, we would have had a whole thing about like cultural misconceptions and like missteps and how to make sure that you're, not doing that. So there you
Yeah, the
go.
one good thing I did though is I told the hotel guy my room number in French. It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
321, which means 321. And when I said that
Nice.
to him, he was like, I said that to him and he goes, yes. He like freaked out. He was so excited that I did. It was
That's
hilarious.
amazing. Yeah, as long as you try, they will be so kind. And as long as you're also kind to them, I feel like, you're usually good to go. So I always tell the kids, like, just be nice. You never know what someone's going through. Like, just be nice. And usually it
Yeah.
works really well for them. So,
No, that's cool.
yeah.
Let's end on this. What I've been doing this recently and I enjoy it. I stole it from Chris Williamson and Diary of a CEO. They're like the big
Oh, yeah,
podcasters
yeah,
right
yeah.
now.
Okay.
And I tell people that because I don't want someone to think I came up with it on my own. But what's the most important thing that I didn't ask you that you'd like the audience to know about either
Ooh.
your company or traveling or just whatever? Like a parting farewell gift for the audience.
Oh my gosh. Could have prepared for that.
Yeah,
Whew.
no pressure.
Okay. No pressure. Okay, here's what I think people should know is that life is very short, but the world is also very small, in the sense that, like, if you keep putting things off until a later date, whether it be, starting that company, taking that next step, going on that trip, it will never happen. And so you really have to think. I know it sounds bad to sometimes be a little bit selfish, but sometimes you need to be a little bit selfish and really take advantage of, like, this big, beautiful life and your time that is spent here. And, do that thing that makes you happy. Like I said, whether it's the business or traveling. And for the travel part, the world is very small. You will be so surprised about the people that you meet and the commonalities that you have with these people. And most of the time, if you really, like, when you have such a wonderful experience and you meet these amazing people, you always stay in touch. And so relationships, like, you'll just continue to build those anywhere in the world. So take that step, go and do that thing that makes you happy, be a little bit selfish, and maybe make some friends along the way. And I think that's the key to a healthy life and a happy life. So,
I love that. Life is short and the world is smaller than you think.
yeah.
That's cool.
And sign up for Ventry's Adventures, obviously, but the other stuff was a lot better.
No, that's so cool. Where can people find you on social media?
So, I guess on Instagram, I'm learning social media. I just got a TikTok, but I highly recommend not going that route. So Instagram at Ventry's Adventures, or to see, like, any of our upcoming trips and things on the website, ventriesadventures.com.
Cool. All right. Yeah, I'll put a link to it in the show notes so people can reach out to you if they'd like to.
Thanks.
Yeah,
That's so
yeah.
exciting.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day. We've been trying to nail
Yeah,
this down for a while. We got
I
it
know.
in.
Sorry.
This has been
Yeah.
this has been great. I think people will really enjoy listening. For you guys out there watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify, whatever, thank you for tuning in. Feel free to reach out to Kristy or myself if you ever need anything. We love you guys. And as always, keep moving forward. Boom. We did it. Good job. Yeah, we're done. Yeah.